Just be true to what you said on paper.
I wish that I could freely dream and vision from within, haunted by a power that cannot see past my skin. My views are viewed as ignorant, my truth always denied. My history is shrouded in a spider web of lies. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Of the freedom of speech, somewhere I read. Of the freedom of press, somewhere I read.
In the heat of the moments, right?
Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is WPBG LP 102.9 at the Round Table with Mamleo. I am your host, Denise DePina-Reed, with Dr. Willie Bradley, and we have our guest, a 7th District candidate. Oh, I'm sorry.
At large.
Boston City, I'm so used to saying that. Boston City Councilor at large, Domingos DaRosa. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning.
You're welcome. Good morning.
I don't think his mic is on. But you know
What
what? Before we get started with this interview, brother, I'm so sorry to do this. I have to apologize for the gesturing that I'm making in my facial expressions to people who can see me on.
You having troubles over there?
I'm having problems with this adjudication out of Missouri. You know, I'm just reading some things that are really making me angry. I'm taking it, I'm internalizing this, and the expressions that are coming out on my face are not very pleasant. So I do apologize, but this is outrageous, and we as a people got to do something about it. And we started with our representatives who are actually representing us in these areas, in the halls of government. You know, that government itself can be fair for all people at all times, and not based on someone's color.
And we also remember that President Ellison is still in power.
Yeah, I got you. Hello, Mr. President. Welcome, and thank you for waiting for us. So, brother, I'm sorry, but being that you're sitting next to me, you probably said this guy was freaking out.
No, I'm actually, reading over your shoulder. You're absolutely right. When you have someone who clearly says he's going to kill somebody and then turn around and get found not guilty for something he clearly admitted he was going to do beforehand, premeditated.
And I can't help but thinking that, being a man of color, and being a very dark man of color, if I were in that position and I said that, the outcome would have been entirely different.
Oh, absolutely.
So as a police officer, a professional, and as an academic, I'm looking at this and I'm saying this is absolutely wrong. And where are we going as a people if we're going to actually stand by and let this mockery of justice happen? That's how I feel about it. But I'm sorry.
Well, the thing is, to put it out there for the public to read. A lot of stuff like this that happens, we don't get to see it. It's not put out there for us to see on social media or even on mainstream media. They downplay it, but clearly what you're reading and I'm reading, it is troubling for America's youth.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you're going to have an officer, and my whole thing is the perception of the community. When they see something like this, when they hear about something like this, other officers who are innocent, other officers who are doing their job and doing it correctly, get painted with the same brush. That is unhealthy.
It's a negative paint, and it shouldn't be, because we do have some great law enforcement within our own city that get a little bit of backlash for things that happen outside our city.
Exactly. And we as police officers, we need to understand that our behavior is something that is not only applied to us, but is applied to other people who are working in the same working in the law enforcement profession and elsewhere around the country. But we can get on to this interview, and I'm so sorry I just had to put that on the table.
Okay, so, good morning, Domingos DaRosa. So, I've been following you on Facebook, but
Thank you.
I consider you a friend and a little
I appreciate it.
And you're running for Mike Flaherty's seat?
That's what my intentions is to remove some folks from at-large positions who are not seeing our concerns in the city as one of their top priorities. I've been calling Mike Flaherty out for the simple fact that
Yes, you have.
we don't see Mike Flaherty. You know, I had one folks said to me, "You mean Mike Larry?" No, I said Mike Flaherty, not Mike Larry. And they were like, "Who is he?" I said, "He's a city councilor at large." He was like, "I've never seen him, never met him, never heard of anything he's done within the city." I said, "Well, you know, we can go to that movie Distinguished Gentleman with Eddie Murphy. You use the name, you know, Jeff Johnson, the name you know." So I'm calling for my community to come out and unseat this gentleman because he's not looking out for our best interests across the city of Boston. He has his own agenda, and it doesn't include our concerns.
I would say pretty much all of them. You're the only one who's running. We have, 14 people, and I apologize because I used 7th District, and because there's like 14 of them.
But in District 7, yeah.
District 7, but you were the only one to decide to run for the at-large, and as I said, was it because they felt that the at-large candidates were doing such a great job that no one wanted to run against them?
It's a bigger task. A lot of folks said to me, why was I running at large? And I kind of explained to them the fact that I've done community work across the city. I spent 21 years in Boston Centers for Youth and Families, and I've worked out of just about all 30 plus community centers. So I've made friends across the city, but it is a bigger task. It is a bigger pool for you to draw from as far as votes. Some candidates made the decision on the location where they live. I currently live in Hyde Park, so it was easier for me to make the decision to go at large than run for that district because a lot of the folks that I work with hands-on live within the inner city of Boston.
Okay. President Allison is on the phone. Charlie Larry, go ahead.
Your mic is not on, sister.
President Allison's on the phone. Go ahead, Larry.
Mr. President, you on the line?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning. A couple of things. First of all, I just want to touch on the other section. We're going to move right back to when you're talking about the shooting and stuff. If you remember, the current president said he could stand in the middle of Times Square and shoot someone and get away with it, right? So I think the language that was used sets the tone. Now, as far as, I heard someone saying that's Michael Flaherty's seat. That is not Michael Flaherty's seat. I think Scott Brown said it when he was talking about Kennedy. That seat doesn't belong to no one. It's the people's seat.
Correct,
We should
correct.
look at it like that way, because then people feel like, oh, somehow you're encroaching on someone else's territory.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't even go into the mindset that it belongs to any individual. You have a right to fight for that seat just like anyone else. And
Absolutely.
Analogy was spot on. That what have really any of them done to deserve to be reelected? And I don't understand why people sit by idly and complain about how bad things are, but yet we do nothing to change it. And the change starts with holding the people who are elected accountable. If they're not doing the job, if I don't do my job, I don't have a job. But somehow we think elected officials are there for life until they decide they no longer want the job. And that's not the way it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the sad thing about it is the younger population, including myself, is at a point where we just follow suit. We don't go out there and research what's going on into the local politics. You know, everyone feels that we can't make a difference because of this last election with the presidency. But in reality, local politics is where we have our hands on. We can make the decisions on who we feel will fit the bill to push forward our concerns, to make sure that our concerns are heard, not just across our city, but across the country. Because what we do here in Boston seems to be, a national model for, other cities and states. Going back into the Menino regime, he was the leader of all the mayors across the country because of what he was doing in Boston. Just past week, the commissioner went down to D.C. to speak about what they're doing in Boston to make the violence, decrease the violence. But in reality, us who live here doesn't see a decrease. But nationally, people do.
Well, exactly. But that's the other question, same police commissioner, right, who, in my opinion, disciplines people of coincided with Donald Trump. This is going on. Donald Trump just brought it out, and because I have filed not one lawsuit, my organization, against Donald Trump. It has been the current man, it has been the current police commissioner, and the previous ones. All of them had a D beside their name. Democrats. This is the same, pretty much the same city council who has been standing by idly as these lawsuits continue, right? This is why I say not one of them has reached out to our organization and said, hey, what is going on here with all these lawsuits, discrimination? And not only are they just going on, but they're being proven, right? So that's my question to you, is that if elected at large, because you represent the whole city, would you hold hearings into these lawsuits and this disciplinary action that the city, the police department is taking, particularly against officers of color in a more harsh way?
Oh yes, definitely. The more the public knows, the more we educate them, the better they are in putting themselves in positions to make sure that things go in the manner that they need to see. It's sad that we have a lot of these issues that go about, and a lot of it is not put out there for people to know. So my biggest thing is the communication piece, being transparent with the public. And the current administration only gives us bits and pieces of what's going on. And that's something that we have to change internally. And the only way we're going to do that is by changing the normal process that's happening at City Hall. I'm not a politician. I'm a community member. And that's what I tell everyone that I encounter. I'm not looking to become a politician. I'm looking to become a community member who provides information to my community so my community can come out and represent itself. So we don't have these issues where one officer who commits the same type of offense receives less discipline than another. We had some issues a few weeks back regarding Felix Arroyo with some sexual allegations, and then we had another individual who's part of the mayor's cabinet who also has these same type of allegations, but he's still on paid leave. So those are the things that a lot of people in our city don't see. And I'm not saying they don't care. It's just it's not something that's in their their day-to-day task. They're not looking at.
I'm going to disagree with you to this point, and I'm going to hang up and listen. Right? Is that they do see it, but they sit in a state of paralysis because everyone knows this is going on, and people are afraid to speak out because somehow they'll be labeled as troublemakers for bringing out the obvious, just as we are labeled as troublemakers for informing and educating people about what's going on. You're absolutely right. No one is condoning if that behavior that is alleged to have taken place is appropriate. That's not the argument that we're making. The argument we're making is that why are these things being handled differently when they look like us?
Well, as you can see, we only have a handful of minorities downtown. As far as the city council, there's 13 city councilors and there's only a handful of minority councilors. The commissioner came out and called us the majority minorities. I mean, that's just a dumb statement, but in reality, we are the majority now. We need to take control of our local politics and make sure we put people in place so they can push those arguments.
Well, but let me push back on that a little bit, right? Because really, I know the numbers aren't as important because it only takes one. If you look at when the whole council stood up and said that Chuck Turner should be terminated, Councilor Yancey was the only one who stood up and said, no, you guys got it wrong. Even their chief counsel, and he was correct at the end of the day.
Right.
So clearly, people down there don't know the job they're doing. Right? That's the problem.
Yeah, a little bit of that too. I mean, Tito was the only one that voted against the mayor's budget. He took out $30 million plus out of the school budget to reallocate into the police department, which we do need better policing, but at the same time, he was the only one that voted against a budget that was taken away from the youth and putting it into a different department. But at the same time, all the other councilors felt that it was okay.
So, I'm gonna listen to the rest of your interview. Thank you for coming on, and best of luck to you.
Thank you, sir.
And to add to your point too, I don't know if you know, but Boston Globe actually had a recent article within the past couple of weeks where they actually, and I'm just reading right from the article, that they actually did an analysis of Boston police records, and it said the number of people so where they start off is the number of people singled out for street investigations by Boston police dropped significantly in 2016, but blacks continue to make up a disproportionate share despite the department's efforts to reduce racial disparity. So of the nearly 15,000 individuals that police observed, interrogated, or searched last year, almost 70% were black, the Globe analysis found. And blacks constitute about 25% of the city's population.
Well, that's only what they put on paper. There's a lot of things that
There's
happen.
a lot more?
Oh yeah, 10 times more. There's things that happen on these street corners that most cops don't even put in FYIs. They don't put them in. They don't document them. They'll do a stop and it's never broadcasted to the department. It's just pretty much, you're an individual in the community and they know that you are a key player. They'll harass you 24 hours a day, but it's never documented.
How would you propose some form of accountability or kind of check on this type of behavior?
Well, it's about restructuring the upper administration in BPD. We're a city that needs someone of color to lead, to show these younger individuals that with your hard work, you can become something successful. And right now, our kids don't see that. Every time that I drive up and down Geneva or Bowdoin or Washington Street or any part of our inner city, I always see 4 or 5 white males harassing a group of black youth. And, there's some times that I'll speak up and say, hey, listen, man, what's going on? Oh, mind your business. This got nothing to do with you. Well, why are you stopping these individuals? Just because they fit a bill that you've received as a description of a suspect, then that means that's everybody. We all wear the same kind of clothing. We all shop at the same stores. So how can you differentiate one person from the next when we all live in the same community and wear the same type of clothing and walk the same way? I had one youngster that I've met since he was about 5 years old. He's in his 20s now, and I always tell him, pull your pants up. Why, Domingos? I said, do you know every time you grab the side of your pants to pull it up, it gives an officer driving by the intentions that you have a gun on you? Oh, I never looked at it like that. I said, well, that's what they're looking at. They're not looking at the fact that you don't have a belt. They're looking at the fact that you might have a gun because you're holding your pants at waist-high. So to change that, you need to wear a belt. So, eventually you wind up, doing that. But it doesn't take away from the hundreds before him and the hundreds after him who constantly get harassed by BPD. And it's not all BPD. It's majority of the Caucasian males who come out on our black youth and label them as key players. And most of these kids are not key players. They're just a group of friends walking to and from a location.
We have a call.
And a lot of them, I'm going to make this one comment because I'm not for 60 and it doesn't stay long. A lot of the officers that are riding 3 and 4 and 5 deep in the community really don't have an understanding of the nuances of the black community or the Latino or the Hispanic community. So they will make those stops because I would perceive that as this guy needs a belt.
Right.
I would look at it as this guy needs a belt, and he can't run because his pants are falling around his ankles. He can't run from me.
Correct.
So it's all about perception,
Yes.
and it's all about understanding how to relate to the people that you're enforcing the law over. So it's frustrating to me. I'm sitting back here quietly listening to it, and I'm saying to myself, what we need in the city and in cities throughout the country, we need a police force that's willing to open up to the community and involve the community in setting the police agenda. That's what we really need, because when you have that in place, what tends to happen, not only does the community understand what you're doing, but you have an understanding of what the community needs and what it wants. I'm sorry, caller, you're on the air.
Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning. I have a question for your guest. This is T. Michael Thomas.
Good morning.
As an elected official, let's say everything works out your way, you become the city councilor at large. My question to you is, what plans do you have set in place to help these young individuals that you just spoke about? Because one of the reasons they're on the streets, there's nothing for them to do. There's no training. There's no jobs like they used to have when we were kids. Do you have a plan that you can create jobs that they can create a gainful employment and be productive in society?
There's things that I've been working on and I've worked on for many years when I was with Boston Centers for Youth and Families. We have a lot of programs in Boston, and the issue that I see is that a lot of these programs are not actually performing to their best of their abilities. And what I mean by that is, let's use Madison Park as a prime example, right? They're a Tier 5 school. They're getting ready to get taken over by the state. There's over 30 trades in Madison Park. Not one union job comes out of there. 2 years ago, it was missing 70 professional teachers with no headmaster. And people downtown sat back and just watched it fall apart, and now they want to come and fix it. It's never too late to fix something, but if we had a better system of placing students within Madison by figuring out do you actually want to be there, having them take a placement test in middle school to kind of weed out the kids that don't want to do a trade versus the ones that do. I myself graduated from Madison in '96. I did automotive. I was 15 years old, ripping engines out of trucks and turning them into inboard engines for boats. I loved it. I graduated from Franklin Institute, applied science in automotive. So this thing's here in Boston that just needs to be revamped and put back out there with a better message, because a lot of our students don't want to go to school. Madison has one of the lowest graduation rates in Boston, but it's a gem.
But no, my question is, okay, I'm sorry. My question to you is, and I'll make this quick because I don't want to tie up the line. One of the problems that we have in our community are folks who's been incarcerated, folks who have dropped out of high school that will never go to college. My point to you is, tell you what, you and I should meet, because they will tell you, I'm the founder of the People's Academy. See what it's about. Let's have a conversation, because if you're serious about Madison Park and helping these youths, you and I should sit down and have a talk. I will wait for your response. Thank you.
Well, I believe I actually met you at a meeting down at the ABCD building on Warren Street, and you're absolutely right. And you were looking for some funding to further your program, and that's what we need more of. We need actual programs that actually work, not programs that keep taking from programs that don't have the funding. Our city has so many resources that we can use, but the problem is they give it to the ones that are in their pockets, programs that give back to their agenda, not per se to what we're trying to do within our own city.
There was a meeting on Bowden Street earlier this week. You were there.
Yeah, I see you.
That's right, I was there. Okay. Give me your thoughts about the meeting. The meeting was on violence. Okay. Everybody was in attendance. Everybody was in the meeting except the mayor and the governor. Okay. Violence has plagued our city. Okay. They want us to believe that violence is down.
I don't think it is.
They want us, I applaud Ayanna Presley for the work that she's doing with the girls. I got a daughter. I got a granddaughter. And I'm all for everything that's going on with girls. But when I hear about the shootings,
it's mostly boys.
That's where I'm going. There have been a few incidents where some girls have been shot, but it wasn't. The only word I wanted, collateral damage. They were caught in the crossfire. The shootings that are happening on the street, those are boys. And so I want somebody to come up and find a way, get a program, do something, because the shootings that are happening, those are our young boys.
Our futures.
Those you're right. Those are our futures. And so, tell me what you thought about that meeting. Because first of all, the interpreter headphones didn't work. And while I am Denise DePina Reed, I don't speak the language.
Right. Well, I applaud Paulo Barros. He's a good friend of mine. I kind of find out him and my nephew actually has a relationship before I even met the guy. But I was glad to see some of the older generation come out. Some of the parents, Cape Verdean parents who fail to realize, you immigrate to a new country, your kids are going to pick up habits that you might not see and you might not want to see. Some of us are too proud to say, hey, that's my son on the street corner. That's why when I introduce myself as one of the kids on the corners, because I am. I went through that phase like most of us here in the city. And what took me away from that was one of my coaches, Andre Reeds and Al Kennett, who seen something in me and said, you know what, you've been swimming on a swim team at the Mason Pool for years. Me and my friends, we were about 40 of us, and all we had in that part of Roxbury was the Mason Pool. So when I seen all these older folks come out and actually get a little bit of what is going on and letting them understand what the younger folks are looking at and what they're going through, kind of gave me a little inspiration to keep on doing what I'm doing, because little by little, things are going to change. For the Cape Verdean population, as a new group of immigrants, and I mean, Cape Verdeans have been here just as long as everyone else, but the identity wasn't. For myself, growing up in the 80s, there was no Cape Verdeans as an identity. It was like, what are you, Spanish? You don't sound Spanish, so what are you? So now that we actually have an identity, the kids are running with a culture that they don't understand, and that's a street culture. Street culture doesn't have a color. It has a lifestyle. And a lot of our kids in the Cape Verdean community doesn't understand that culture because they're new to it. The parents are new to it. So my goal of being there was just to introduce myself to some folks who might walk by me and see me with my pants and see me with my beard rugged and wearing my hat a certain way. And they might look at me and say, oh, he's just another bandido, which is just another bum on a street corner. But in reality, you don't know what people can do unless you give them an opportunity. This is one of the reasons why I'm running, because I'm trying to inspire, the youth that I've worked with over the 20 plus years to see that they can make a change in their lives and in the people's lives around them. But the violence in Boston, as you know, has been systematically done to every culture, every community, every background that you can speak of. It's just our turn. It's the Cape Verdeans' turn. And the only way we're going to fix that is by educating a lot of the parents on what goes on. And you're absolutely right, the mayor wasn't there. Not enough votes.
And I think that's actually, it would have been nice for the mayor to be there too, because to ask the question of why you'll have the mayor and the commissioner will keep saying that crime is down, or numbers are down here, numbers down there, but they're pulling how many millions, did you say, of dollars?
30 million from the school department.
From the school department to the police department. If crime is so low, as they say.
Why do you need that?
Why exactly?
Right, yeah, but I think a bigger question is, and I do follow your logic, but I think a bigger question is, why wasn't he there? Because he doesn't consider crime in the community, in the black community, in the Latino community, in the communities of color has been an important issue. You're asking for votes, but yet you decide that these grassroots meetings in grassroots organizations are not important enough for you to detour or change your schedule. That in itself is a fault.
Well, there was something that I'm still bristling. So there was a shooting on the Boston Common a couple of days ago.
He was all over it.
I'm still bristling. So it was deemed an isolated incident. And then they stepped up patrols and police presence because the people there need to feel safe. And
how about us?
Let me finish. I'm bristling. And so then I'm sitting here saying, okay, and I put it out there on Facebook because, I get upset. So there is a shooting not but steps from my door. And how many shootings have there been in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan? I mean,
I believe we have about 36 murders this year.
Okay, you know what? I don't like the idea that somebody wants to consider any other community more important than another. And then they stick the police in the middle.
Right.
See, we just go where we're told to go.
Correct.
But, how about the rest of us trying to feel safe? Because I'm going to ask the people of Roxbury and Dorchester and Mattapan, do you feel safe? I mean, seriously, I bristle at that. I want those folks down at the Common and where else, because sometimes I go down there. I like to feel safe, but I also would like the people of Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, South Boston, West Roxbury, Hyde Park. I'd also like you all to feel safe. I just thought that whoever put that comment out there, you need to be ashamed of yourself, because the rest of us would like to feel safe.
Well, to add to what this young lady was saying is, not only that the mayor wasn't there, and the governor and all elected officials, we didn't have, District 3 councilor Frank Baker, he wasn't there. We didn't have any at-large councilors there. The mayor sent his little department heads and folks that, I call them minions, because you do whatever Professor Grew says, the minions do. So it'd be nice to see more of our representation from City Hall actually at these meetings, so people can actually put a face to the name. Not just seeing you on TV, but actually seeing you in the community, doing the community work that we actually voted you to do. But it's not going to change, because that's the politics. Dorchester Roxbury doesn't produce the votes that's West Roxbury and New Ponset produces. A few years back, they were redistricted. Lower Mills was redistricted because they do not want to be classified as Dorchester, because it brings down their property value. But my mother's house is worth $900,000. I don't know how much more we can devalue something that we keep in a family that we've had for one generation so far. But I feel that the only way we're going to make these young folks understand, and it's to go back to what the gentleman on the line said, was about these individuals coming out of prison. 90% of the guys coming out of prison are being told that you cannot vote. You cannot vote because you are convict. In Massachusetts is one of the only states that you can vote. 6 months after being released, you have all your human rights given back to you. So a lot of our population don't know that, including my own relatives. And when I started educating them on this subject, they kept laughing like, why would I vote? Ain't no one there for me to vote. So I said, what do you think if I ran? Would you? So to begin my campaign, I started registering a lot of felons from different street corners that I know, and they actually felt as part of society. Like, wow, I can actually vote. I thought I couldn't. So for us to change all that into these community meetings, we should be doing more than just speaking about the violence. We should be speaking about things that we can change, getting folks to register to vote, getting folks to understand who their city councilors are. My mom never knew Frank Baker was her counselor till I told her who he was. He taught, at that time, it was Chuck Turner. We gravitate to the black candidates not knowing that they're not in our district. Some of us don't have them as district councilors. And some folks don't understand that you have 5 city councilors. You have 4 at large and 1 district. Those 5 individuals need to be held accountable. Even if I was in office, I would love to be held accountable, because that's what you voted for me to do, is to be accountable for concerns and matters that you want to be heard on that platform.
Well, let me ask this question. There's a young lady who's in charge of, I think it's Campbell, who's in charge
Andrea Campbell.
Yeah, she's in charge of public safety.
Public safety, yes.
Was she at the meeting?
No.
Why would someone of that importance, serving on an important committee of that nature, not be in a meeting about crime and violence in the community? It doesn't make any sense.
We had 6 murders in the Cape Verdean community in the last month.
You see, so we need to call those people out, and we need to make sure that those individuals understand, that people understand what they didn't do. Meetings like this and platforms like this is a very excellent platform to put that name out there. So when people actually become voters, they can remember that person didn't honor their commitment.
The only person that I saw Vanto Cavallo, I saw Captain Timmy Conley, Superintendent Gross was there. I don't think I saw anyone from City Hall.
You had John Barrows was in the back of the room.
I didn't see him.
Yeah, there was a few other folks who were kind of like there, but not there. They didn't really say much. They didn't really do much. They were just there to be there, sign the sign-in sheet, and just make sure that they were notarized that they were there by signing the sheet. But you're absolutely right, and I feel the reason why she didn't show up is she's running unopposed. So she doesn't have someone who's running against her. So what is the purpose of me fighting for a seat that no one's trying to take? Just like Frank Baker, he's not being opposed. So he's not going to show his face in a community where, 1, he's not getting votes. 2, it doesn't really matter to him because it's on this side of Adam Street versus that side of Adam Street. And this is why I'm like frustrated with a lot of the things that happen in City Hall because of that. We are community members. We live in these communities. You cannot represent a district unless you live in that district. You cannot represent the city unless you live within the city. But these folks feel like they are guaranteed a position because they're being ran unopposed. And I ask every person out there who has any will to make change, put your name in the hat. All it takes is a little effort. You might not win this time. You might not win next time. But at the same time, you're out here showing people that you're going to hold them accountable. I've been reached out to since I put my name in the hat by the mayor's minions several times. They visit me on my practice field, and like I told them, if you're not here to talk football, if you're not here to bring me a check to support the program, don't come talk to me about the mayor's agenda. I met Marty Walsh when I was a chapter chair for a local SEIU 888. I represented 400 members for BCYF. I negotiated about 6 contracts. Where I became more involved was when I started seeing numbers and seeing line items in the same line item in different departments. An example is youth violence prevention. The police department has $1 million budget. So does BCYF. So does Parks and Recs. And so does the Health Commission. But it's the same $1 million. It's not being spread out as $4 million. It's being spread out as $1 million. So these individuals are running youth violence prevention with $1 million spread across the city that has 30,000 students in Boston public schools. What I like to see is BCYF be combined with the school department. Let's get rid of all these chiefs that are doing absolutely nothing. Give the principal the power to incorporate community centers within the school and provide the swimming classes. Why? I was a lifeguard. I taught swimming to thousands of kids at the John Marshall School. Didn't cost the city anything extra because I was already on the payroll. Athletic directors. Each community center has one, but we don't have no traveling teams. We don't have no community center teams. We don't have no soccer teams. We don't have any sports coming out of these community centers but basketball. We have youth workers who, in their job description, clearly says you work with the youth, you bring in programs to service the youth within that facility. Some youth workers go beyond the call of duty. And that's every title within BCYF. But the problem is, the upper management does absolutely nothing. I sat there for 21 years. I was forced out of my department because I would write up my supervisor for being an hour late. I would write up my supervisor for not writing him up. So it got up to Daphne Griffith, and I was disciplined for not following the chain of command. And that's when I was like, you know what? The gloves are off. Screw them. What are they going to do to me? Take away 40 grand? Big deal. 40 grand doesn't make me. So as I got more involved in my union, and as I got more involved in what I was doing as a city employee, I was pushed out by my union. I was pushed out by my department because I was advocating for kids across the city. Our youth violence can be fixed by incorporating these programs as a day-to-day program. I worked at the Harlan on a program called Street Safe. It was a safe haven initiative.
I remember that.
And Johnny Dawson, JD, met me at a meeting. I was 16 years old, and he was like, oh, I heard so much about you. Miss Harris is always talking about how you're a great asset to her pool. I want you to come and work with me on the weekends. We had almost 300 kids on the Geneva boating Saturdays and Sundays. Free lunch, free breakfast, free snacks. And these kids would come in drones to get away from the violence on the streets, to get away from the issues at home. We don't have that anymore. If you walk into the Harlem Community Center, it's empty. You will walk in after 6 and the gym's being rented out to a Caucasian group at $150 an hour, while the kids on boating in Geneva have nowhere to go. And it's not just the Harlem. It's the majority of the community center. You walk into the Tobin, which is the headquarters, after 6, all you smell is weed. But no one says nothing to the youth. So for me, it's more than just running for a seat. For me, it's to make a difference because these children that we are burying are our kids, are our futures, our everything that we want to see out of all the effort your generation put in to make sure that my generation have these rights to vote, these rights to walk the streets of Boston, these rights to become successful. We're losing it because they're allowing us to do it to ourselves. So my goal as a city councilor would be to fix our education system. Once we fix the education system, then we can fix the housing crisis, we can fix the jobs, and we can fix public safety. But without the education, how we expect these children to become successful adults when they can't read or write? I went to Madison. If I didn't learn how to turn a wrench by stealing cars on the streets, how can I go to school and fix cars? So I use my own experience to inspire other children because it's like, look, I was a kid that did wrong, found the benefit within the wrong, and then used it to push myself into the next phase of my life. And I'm blessed because I have a mother that does not stop. She's 71 this upcoming month. I get 7 phone calls a day. Did you eat? Where you at? Where you going? Who you with? What you doing? Are you home yet? And mothers and fathers do this in the minority community, but we don't get the recognition because 1 or 2 who are out there who are strays, who don't have that, are causing these different crimes in our community. But people always say, it's not my kid. Well, my mom always told me, they don't have to be your kid. As long as you love them as your kid, they'll respect you as their parent. And we don't have that no more. Everyone wants to go back to this proverb, African proverb, it takes a village, it takes a village. It does, but it also starts with you. You have to build the village. The Boston Bengals is a program I run, and we have about 160, 170 kids. It's a family atmosphere. My kids play there. My wife's part of the board. My big brother, Big Mike's part of the board. My sister's the cheer coordinator. So we try to give these kids an atmosphere where if they have an issue, they can speak to Miss Tio. They can speak to Coach Mingo. They can speak to Big Mike. Because a lot of our teenagers, they don't have that. And we as adults keep saying, I used to, which I call the Al Bundy syndrome. Poke high, 4 touchdowns. Listen, man, you're not the guy you were 20 years ago. These kids now don't respect you because of the simple fact you don't respect them. We drive up and down our communities, all you smell is weed. You drive up and down our communities, you see guys still standing in front of liquor stores all day. So for us to make our community better, we need to take the initiative by educating our children. And if we change our school system by putting people in place who are actually going to vote for increasing school budgets instead of decreasing school budgets, we can make a difference.
Dr. Bradley?
Well, I'm just sitting here listening. I think it's a pretty good platform so far. I do think education is the key to anything that we're doing. And one of the things that I think that is a problem with our education system is that we're outsourcing creating the agenda, the profile for what our kids will learn to someone else, and not being actively involved in saying, our kids need to know these areas. For instance, I'm thinking about civic education.
That's out the door.
The fact that we have generations of folks who really have a fundamental misinterpretation of how our government should run. What are the roles of different components of government? And I think it's dangerous because when you have that, it makes it easy for us to rewrite our government structure, rewrite the responsibilities and the structure of our government system.
And our own history, Black history.
Yeah. So I hear you. I think you're right. It starts with the youth, but I think everything that we do in a democracy is calculated, especially a democracy that has a demographic or demographics of people that it does not like, it can't stand. That's why I think you have issues around immigration and what this Congress administration is trying to do as it relates to building walls and building fences up on the southern part of our border, because those people don't look like the people who are in control. So I think starting with the youth is extremely important. Educating the youth is extremely important. But there's a culture in place, and that culture that's in place is going to defend itself. It's going to defend itself when it sees that there's a counter culture to that is coming and trying to get in place and trying to actually reestablish how things are done. And I think it's wise to think about how do you deal with that defense. Because I think the things that you're saying are absolutely on target. Around education, things that you're saying is absolutely on target, holding folks accountable who have to come into our communities every other year, every election cycle to say, this is what I'm about. I will make your life easier. I'll make your life better. I would make sure that the government doing what it's supposed to do. I will hold the government accountable. But yet, on those off election years, you don't see these individuals. Right. You know what I mean? At all. So, really, you see them when they're begging for your vote. And people like who's running unopposed in a democracy, you should never run unopposed in a democracy. Yeah. That speaks volumes about people who are actually on the sidelines, on the bank of the activity, thinking about should I run? If I do run, what kind of support I have? She can't be so well entrenched that no one would would actually challenge her. You know, there's got to be other forces, social forces, preventing folks to, to run for that seat. And Larry was absolutely correct. It's not her seat. It's not anybody's seat but the people's.
Absolutely right. And, that was one thing that was said to me. I don't have the funds. And I said to them, this is, someone's vote is not about funds. Someone's vote is about you actually connecting with them for them to see that you are going to make a difference. You are going to hold yourself accountable for the things that they want to see change. A lot of the things that I see as a young person, I turned 40 about 3 weeks ago, and it's a blessing. I was told majority of my life you won't see certain age brackets, and to be there and taking it in day by day, it gives me the will to keep fighting, to keep doing things that most people say you can't do. I was told you can't get on the ballot. I came out, I got close to 3,000 signatures. Some was validated, some wasn't, but it was enough to get me on the ballot. I was also told that you're not going to raise the funds, and social media doesn't cost anything. I was also told that some of the things that I'm thinking of is not doable. And I said, you know what it is? You're just negative. So what I think I'll do is remove myself from your circle. I don't need the negativity. I need someone who's going to say, hey, listen, man, the Berlin Wall took a long time to come down, but eventually it did.
Well, Donald Trump is the president of the United States. They said that wasn't doable. We see what he's doing. He's doing a lot for not to be doable. So I do hear you, and I think the whole concept of social media being used as a fundraiser entity adds another dynamic to getting folks into politics and getting the necessary financial requirement to get in, because a lot of people in my generation, you had to go door to door, stand outside with a with a pen or do some emails. Some postal mails. And today you can just get on the phone and start creating your website and say donate. From people from all parts of the world. So that's a beautiful thing. But I think also what we have to think about is that we as a country, and I'm gonna go back to education here because I think education is important. Education in this country was designed to educate people so that they could actually work in an industrial society, an industrial commerce, industrial profession, for lack of a better term. Those industries are now no longer here, but yet we'll continue to educate people to prepare them to work in industry that's not here. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is that education needs to change. We are no longer, Massachusetts is no longer a textile magnet like it used to be in the early 20th century. It's not. It is now, we live in an information age that are run by these things here, and that very few people are educated on how to actually build, maintain, and upgrade these things. And so when we start talking about education, we need to talk about, what are we going to educate our people to do? Why is it that our people of color are always the ones that are behind? Why is it that our people of color are sitting on the corner in front of a liquor store, but why are we having grassroots organizations who are bringing people in to teach people how to code these things that pay $85,000 a year? You know what I mean? And because the minds are there, the mind it takes to run a drug, peddling exercise is phenomenal.
Small business.
So why can't you actually teach that mind how to do things like this, or open up a legitimate small business? That's the kind of thinking I think we need to do. I'm getting the sign that we have we're approaching the top of the hour. I'm amazed that the hour goes so quickly. So, do you have anything that you want to say? Any closing comments that you would like to say?
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for having me here. I appreciate every and any opportunity I get just to speak. For me, it's like a cleansing, it's to get it off my chest, freeing some space in my mind, because sometimes when it comes to the youth, I'm very passionate in making a difference in their lives, because I was a youth that a lot of folks didn't believe I could achieve certain things. I was 25 when I graduated from college, and I was the old guy in the class. So I try to tell a lot of the folks out here, this is not a campaign about Domingos DaRosa. This is a campaign about our youth. This is a campaign to inspire a lot of these kids who, at this particular point in their lives, doesn't see a better day. The music they listen to doesn't say a better day. So if I can come out here and put myself in the line of fire, and inspire the city for our youth to come out in drones and vote, just like they did when President Obama ran for office and he was able to, sit in the White House for 8 years, we can make a difference. We can make a difference that the nation would see as a positive, because we don't deserve what's been given to us. Out of the 13 counselors, the ones that do have children, majority of them don't go to public schools. My children go to public school in Concord by choice. Their school system spends less than we do. So why is it that a lot of our children go to Mecca to receive a better education when here in Boston we spend more money? So I just wanted to say thank you guys for giving me this platform to come out and speak a little bit about, what drives me and gives me the energy to come out every day and make a difference in the people around me and my community.